States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chair is looking for a motion to approve the agenda. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Donovan, no meeting minutes to approve tonight?
No, we're still assembling those. I'm glad to announce that our deputy clerk, the hired deputy clerk, Bailey Fensel, is starting on Monday, and so we'll sort of clean up some of the backlog. And Dan Undum has been our go-to guy for that, and he's they're in draft form. At least for the August and September meetings, but we haven't gone forward yet. So next meeting, promise.
All right. Next on the agenda is a variance for 7540 217th Street for an accessory structure. This is a public hearing to consider it a variance application. Donovan, you are presenting?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's all yours.
So I'd like to present to you the variance request from Mr. Jim Robertson, who's in attendance this evening, for, actually there's two accessory structure setbacks. Requests. One is for, I apologize, here's like, kind of locate us. Can I get some video there? One is for having above the square footage maximum of accessory structures in the single-family zoning district on a parcel. And then the other one is two structures above 150 square feet in size. And my computer's frozen. And the subject property is 7540 217th Street. It's in the Shoreline Overlay District as well, though impervious surface is not an issue here. Parcel size is about, as noted in the variance narrative, about 80,000 square feet. So the subject parcel is here, also shown in the submitted materials. So Mr. Robertson lives here, and if you notice here, underneath the trees is an existing garage. It's essentially on the side property line, and during one of the summer storms, it was badly wrecked. And so at this point, Mr. Robertson would like to tear that down and replace it with a 1,500 square foot accessory structure located much closer to the road, though meeting the accessory structure setbacks. What's different about this property is there's a 450 square foot boathouse here up on the shoreline. At this point, Mr. Robertson would not like to, he'd like to retain that boathouse and yet build the structure shown here in his submitted site plan. This is 217th Street, this is Heath, and so the lake is to your left here with the approach. And what he's done is to actually set the garage doors away from public view, and then make actually the public view shown here in this look more like residential nature, kind of in keeping the character of the neighborhood. Again, here's another image of that west elevation that's facing that corner of Heath and 217th Street. As I mentioned, its structure meets the accessory structure setbacks and the sidewall height maximum for accessory structures in this zoning district. What I believe is the practical difficulty here is that many other homes in this neighborhood can have up to 1,500 square foot garages. And that's what he's seeking to do, and yet retain that, something of an iconic boathouse. But also, the size of the lot makes it different as well, unique in that pretty much from the street, you would see the structure, looking somewhat like a house, but then you wouldn't actually see the house. If you've been at the property, you could see how the house is somewhat invisible from the roadside. And so at this point, I'd like to recommend Planning Commission approval with the conditions that the applicant receive all the proper permitting and that a demolition permit be obtained before, along with the building permit to ensure that the existing garage is torn down when the new one is constructed. At this point, I'd like to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Commissioners, any questions for Donald? Eric?
I would ask our city engineer to kind of summarize the conversation and maybe give his input in on potential linkage of roadways in that area with future construction on 97.
Chairman, Commissioner members, I guess it's coincidence I'm here for this topic tonight, but just to provide a little background in this area, that some conversations that have been ongoing with the City of Forest Lake and MnDOT representatives related to some of the Highway 97 bonding requests pursuit that's been ongoing and some of the discussion there, and then obviously a lot of the discussion has previously gone on with the intersection improvements at Harrow Avenue and Highway 97 and the potential access closures that would come with a project of that sort that would really stretch all the way down to the east end of East Hilo Lane there. And then with that being said, we've talked about, can you move the screen up just a little more? So as you can see, Heath Avenue comes in there. That would still remain a full opening both ways, alternating movements, and that intersection would be better aligned, part of that project. Then that first stretch of road to the east, Hilo Lane there, that west segment of Hilo would be closed. Therefore, your only entrance exit would be the east Hilo. That's much farther down Highway 97 there. But then still to counterbalance that and have another in-out area that previously the city was reviewing the area that if the extension of the 216th was kind of, pushed through to Heath, and then we saw that an application came forward with a garage accessory structure there, so that potential has gone away, and then just to the south of there is wetland. So,
You mean this one?
yep.
Okay.
And then, so where we're at, based on the public open house that we had one evening upstairs in the community room, we talked about and got feedback from the neighbors in the Hilo Lane that's, what about this area? Thus then, MnDOT had a conversation with the city, and would this be something the city would want to engage property owners with, part of that overall project and access closures, and to maintain two entrances, exits into the Hilo Lane area. And to the point really where it's at is, I did do a field review. It is feasible. We could construct something in there. But at this point, the conversations have been between MnDOT and the city, but within the resolution the City Council passed Monday night, there is costs within that bonding request that we are now in the process of finalizing that do outline property acquisition. So if that structure could be adjusted or is stayed there, then really kind of eliminates our potential of having a connection through there if ultimately that's where the project were to get. Right now it's just been a conversation between MnDOT and the city based on some public feedback we received at a public open house earlier this summer.
So you're talking about the possibility of 217th connecting straight over to Hilo?
Yep.
Straight across there?
Correct.
And this would be right in the area where you're planning to put the garage?
Appears that.
That's correct.
Other questions for Donovan? Mike?
Could you go over the side yard, or the setbacks? What's the front yard, the side yard, and what the setbacks of the proposed structure are?
Yeah, the submitted site plan shows those. It's 30 feet from the road.
So is that considered your front yard? Lot line?
Yeah, I believe so. This would be 30, and then kind of in consideration, it's 30, let me zoom it in. We've actually set it back, it's proposed as 40. And also proposes 40 from the property to the south.
Which would be
The nearest
considered a
neighbor.
side yard?
That would be, officially, it's, the way we've sometimes, I would say it's there's different interpretations on this one, because of the way it,
Well, the building more than exceeds any of the minimum setbacks.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering how you're looking at that and interpreting it.
because for these some of these lots that work with this, like with the way they're skewed to the street, basically, the code says that what's opposite the front yard is, front setback is the rear setback. And so, that would make then this, this the rear setback, but then if you look at the house, that becomes a side setback. As you get toward the shoreline.
Okay, I got another question. Is the existing house, is there a garage to the existing house?
I believe so. Is that correct, Jim?
There's a one-stall garage connected to the house.
Why aren't we considering that in our calculations? Because that's an accessory structure.
No, it's an attached garage.
It's not considered part of an accessory structure.
There's some sites that seem like they could grow up into something like more housing. And maybe we can create this northern trail that doesn't put itself right along North Shore. Yes, that one. What doesn't put us right along that, because once we create a safer traffic route, I don't know if there's room to do much else, and maybe that's not trails at all, but maybe there's another route. Eric has a notion about specifically where it might go. I just made it a schematic notion. Consultants help us figure out a way to get another route through the greatest amenities and parks and travel distant from North Shore Trail. Then go down to BB, and there's just a situation site-specific again. That property owner's been sitting on it for a very long time. You could put a lot of sudden density there if you wanted to, be it something that still had lake access through the channel that had to be improved or directly to the lake. There's a moment, if you wanted to zone that different than the way it's zoned today, you could think about adding a density factor there. The same thing story goes down to CC at the bottom. Site-specific, again, as that transitions to large land ownership to smaller stuff in the future, maybe you just want to hold a notion of higher density zoning there, be it townhouse, cluster housing, or something, rather than just let it be what's surrounding it. There could be opportunities to think differently. So that was essentially a story of saying, we want to throw something at the comp plan, here's some thoughts. I think we'd like to keep a dialogue going, and I'd like the Planning Commission to have a dialogue with them. I'd like the EDA to have a dialogue with them. I hope we have those dialogues. But for my own purposes, I'd like to keep bringing ideas forward to a group that wants to keep talking about it. That's the end of my story. I've taken a lot of your time. Thank you, though. Anybody who wants to talk, I'm fine for talking.
Well, I guess my thinking is that this stuff is important to the extent that we make sure that the zoning is appropriate. If it's not appropriate today, to change it in the comp plan to be flexible.
Absolutely. I'm not going to say all that I want to say, but I laud this kind of effort. I think this is the kind of thing that we need to start thinking about. As you know, at the end of several different Planning Commission meetings, I've asked about what the involvement of the Planning Commission as a whole is going to be going forward. And I Well, last Friday, I sat down with Aaron Parrish for about an hour and just talked through what, because I'm not on the task force, and basically what I've just gotten from going to, open houses and various functions that the city has put on related to the comp plan so far. But he encouraged me a great deal by saying that there are going to be opportunities, there are going to be workshops it's just somewhat premature, and he recognized that there were, like he said, a number of people who were impatient to get to that part of the process. But that encouraged me that there are actually going to be opportunities for us to sit down and not just talk about the whole comp plan at once, but divide this thing. There might be 4 or 5 different sessions, each talking about, one that talks about Muciline, one that talks about rezoning, one that talks about infrastructure, so that we have an opportunity to have this kind of input. Because that's what I'm interested in. I was concerned that we were going to just basically be reacting to something that a consultant put together. And Aaron assured me that that's not the case, that if we want to have input, we'll eventually have opportunity to have input in these kind of, whatever you want to call them, nitty-gritty level issues that relate to the comp plan. My main concern is what kind of one of Mark's last comments, and that is that I want to see the city develop. I want to see things grow. I don't want us as a group to be frustrated because the comp plan says somebody comes in with a progressive, exciting idea, and well, we can't do that because the comp plan isn't set up to. I just want to make sure that we look at every single opportunity that we possibly can to make this city a developer, and by developer I'm not talking about necessarily big, huge development. I'm just talking about the opportunity for whether it's the single store owner or somebody that wants to develop a quad, or somebody that wants to come in and do the whole subdivision or build a 100,000 square foot high-tech facility. I want to make sure that this comp plan process that we go through, it loosens every screw that we possibly can and still have it make sense. And I'm not talking about providing the MXZ. What's our mixed use zoning? What's the acronym for it?
Well, MXR1, you mean?
MXR1. I'm not saying we
Residential.
zone all. I'm not saying we zone all of our the whole city MXR. That wouldn't make sense. But I do believe that there are things that need to be done and can be done. And I just want to make sure we have an opportunity to have input on that kind of thing. And I think we will.
So Ryan, what's your part of the comp plan regarding transportation? Are you looking at 5, 10, 15 years down the road kind of thing?
Oh, we're looking much further than that because we want to align with other plans as well, whether it's a municipality or Anoka County, for instance, because we've been talking about a future access in the southern portion of the city, right? Well, if we have our own plan, but really that access is going to be in Anoka County, and if we don't align with their plan, then who are we going to fight with? A different county and where we want it? So, that's all the things that we've been coordinating and will continue to coordinate with. And then continue to go from there. You guys kind of hit on it earlier too, that getting this zoning stuff right now, getting that right is cheap, because based on the decisions that are made in this plan, and then from here on for the next 10 years, all the meetings we have with developers, and this is the size of pipe we tell them they have to extend to serve that density. And if we change that, well, then we're going back to where we connected to that pipe and then bringing that probably through a new road, right? So imagine the expense that would have to be redone if we have second thoughts on what we're doing right now. So that's, and Dennis said earlier too, like something that the consultant's doing. I never want that plan at the end of the day to be thought of, done by the consultant. And that's where, Donovan and I have been trying to get people engaged in this project where it's a community effort, because We want a comprehensive plan. We want those big picture things to dream about in there, because that's what gives, you go after grants, and I show it's in a comp plan. I know sometimes we talk about the Parks and Trail Master Plan being so far-fetched. Well, that's brought in a lot of money in grants. I'm talking millions that we brought in because of this, the stuff that we say that's in a plan that the community's agreed upon, and now we can bring it forth, and yeah, some of it is far-fetched, but that's what all those agencies in the big metro have, and that's what we compete against. If we really want that future interchange, you got to start planning now, because so many other communities and players are investing resources into those infrastructure development or public outreach. You know, tonight was not a good example of how to go after property, right? You know, if that would be a situation. So we want it.
What an understatement, right?
I almost just wanted to leave.
We did too.
Because I found out 2 minutes before the meeting that was on the, you know, the
I
agenda.
found out 2 minutes before the meeting that was, those conversations went on.
But these things, without doing stuff and exercises like these, just, you get stagnant, right? We need to jump it up a level.
That's where a lot of the things that you get involved with for the, you know what's going on in 2020 and 2023 and all of that. And I think sometimes we are short of that information when we're thinking, because we don't know, you know, if that road's going to be something different, you know? So I like that participation.
Well, one last little punctuation, I forgot because I couldn't read the screen. Another on and off down by the way station, right on, right off. It's been drawn in there as well. I mean, I'm just trying to grab hold of access for Forest Lake off of 35. And so if we can push high probability, low probability, not even possible, but still push for it, I think those ideas need to come forward.
Right, we're not gonna get them all,
No.
but you gotta hammer away at them, you know?
What are they talking, you know, I like a lot of these ideas. What are they talking for population growth? Is Washington County, or have they come through with any projections what they're seeing in the next 10, 20, 30?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers right in front of me. I could bring them up as we speak.
So is there an online resource for that sort of thing? I mean, does Washington County actually publish that kind of information?
Yeah, well, the state, well, I mean, every, you know, part of Met Council is part of this planning, they do these projections, and so every municipality has that. And of course, state demographer does those as well for the larger jurisdictions. So yeah, it's available. I could send it to you. Or I could pull up our system statement, which, you know, has those projections just for Forest Lake.
The reason I ask is, you know, we've got a lot of flexibility we're looking at, and if they're saying you're gonna have all of this population growth, we gotta make a little sharper pencil maybe.
I've seen the numbers, I can't relate them, but they're from the state demography and the county and elsewhere, and they've made their projections. I don't know if the city itself has made its projections, but their projections are out there, and it's pretty strident growth.
Well, we've signed off on the ones because we haven't, we didn't really, you know, object to what they did present. There it is.
So for my part, if I'm easily found, anybody wants to have a conversation, anybody wants to continue a conversation, let me know how I fit into your story, and I'm happy to continue to bring ideas to the table, or sit down and talk about specific ideas, or walk away with your ideas, and I will develop them into a graphic that represents those ideas.
Ryan, how dead is the 11th Avenue exit and entrance?
That's probably going to be a very difficult thing to get completed. You know, we've contacted MnDOT, you know, trying to find long-term plans for that rest area. I only can imagine MnDOT loses money on that kind of facility, and with the maintenance that comes along with those. An opportunity I see that's on the horizon is within the county CIP that we've actually requested to be put into the CIP a couple of years ago, and now it's in the CIP, is the reconstruction of County Road 32, which is 11th Avenue, and County Road 33, which is Everton Avenue, to include pedestrian facilities and, you know, better traffic stuff like, and all that. So one thing that I see in there is there that ability at that time to leverage a county project to go through that rest area to have something serve as a possible another access point. That's obviously going to be my motive going into that project discussion or development that's supposed to start occurring around 2020. We plan to have construction in 2022, 23. So, those are the things that continue. That's obviously one of the items within the council that are going to talk again at the next goal-setting workshop, whether that is one of their priorities at the end of that meeting to continue to pursue. But just to be honest, that, an existing ramp there is been said no by the Federal Highway Administration already, and by MnDOT. Washington County said they would not lead another charge because they've been denied once. And when they look at that, it's a comprehensive, very expensive process you go through. But when they went through it originally, it took account that the old Broadway bridge that was there and the existing 97 bridge, so you had those facilities you were ranking and why you then were trying to state your case why you would qualify for another ramp there. Well, at that time it failed. Obviously, since then, there's been the improvement at Broadway Bridge, and then in 2019, the diverging diamond will be constructed. So it'll even be harder to meet the check marks on that box with the ramp located right there. Now, could you utilize something internally with the existing roadside park? Or, I saw Headwaters Parkway. I would love to have at least an off-ramp there, because how much you could relieve traffic off of 97 for the people that live in that part of the city, it would be a no-brainer to me. So, those are the things that we got to continue to push and plan around, because when we do build those new accesses, you're probably not going to really want residential right there at that access. So that's some things we talked about. I know we talked about some commercial industrial development. We threw out some statistics that are existing square footages in town of what those uses are now, and then plus the potential of build out. And our numbers compared to residential, zoning right now, we're not very sustainable for a city this size compared to a lot of other communities. So therefore, I think there's been a lot of heightened elevation to start talking about that industrial commercial expansion of land. Certainly around the Parkway, we've talked about that. So we're trying to bring in a large user by showing that we would be flexible to allow that. Earlier here, Project Pepper it was called. So there were a lot of things going on with that land if that was a possibility, but I think it really opened some eyes on some different uses of land that we could use, because really, the abundance of residential land is far, far beyond what we need.
So to answer your question, Paul, if you look at the what I pulled up, basically, the planned increase in population is around, basically 9,000 between basically, about 9,000 to, currently 2,000 versus almost 29,000 for 2014.
Unless we can bring in more business and more technology and more jobs.
Yeah.
Then we'll have a lot more growth.
So do you know how this 2030 number compares with the 2030 in the current plan? I shot a picture of it, so I'll look it up. I got the comp plan at home, but it's just a curiosity, because it helps put around my head, what are we gonna need? It's nice to see the growth, but that job growth doesn't look that phenomenal.
No. And also this presumes probably, that lower household size as well. We're kind of, going that direction. Fewer children per household. More single people, more single person.
More seniors.
Yes, the seniors scary. Playing pickleball.
A lot of turnover there.
High turnover, you're right.
Other questions for the city today? It was very nice of them and Mr. Finnegan, and
Thank you, Mark.
questions you have on the comp plan and whatnot, as long as we got everybody here.
The only thing I would say is that get as active as you can in throwing in ideas.
I think, my input from this is I want to look at some of the areas where, where, Mr. Finneman and his compadres have identified these big areas of transition and looking at how can we make it more flexible, because we're looking at basically, you'll see the next plan commission, another comp plan amendment application, maybe another one that might involve the Len Pratt land exchange, and those are like 100 pages, and who gets to, write those, Ashton, maybe she'll do it. Ryan's not going to. But, it's just a lot of work, so if we can kind of, try to predict that in a way, kind of get the zoning, the future land use map, flexible enough that we don't have to do these sort of things, or at least minimize the number.
All right, having no other comments, we'll move to the other section of the agenda. Anything else? Hearing none, the chair will look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you all for your contribution this evening.
Good job.